Okay, so the last three chapters of the book kind of cover similar topics, and she focuses on these issues. But I think so. While there may not be many notes, I think all of it is quite relevant, and I think I encourage you guys to read the last three chapters because I think it really kind of ties it together. So the first chapter we're going to talk about is At All Costs, and it really discusses rape and rape culture, right? And she identifies the ideas of what is happening at school, that she's been raped there, but also just the fact that there is discussion of situation of all the students seeking out younger females, uses of power, and why males are seeking out younger women for sex. So she talks about the fact that at Western, there is this culture in our sense of entitlement where young men feel that they are going there to have sex, whether women want it or not. And she identifies different aspects of it because I think when we think of rape, we think of rape as the stranger attacking you. Sometimes we think of acquaintance rape or date rape. Um, uh, we sometimes think about it between married couples, but we don't really. But what she's talking about, there are other types of influences and coercions that happen on campus. One of them being that young freshmen come to Western and older senior level students who are their mentors use that opportunity for sex, right? And then the young women feel pressure to have sex and capitulate. So is it physical assault? No, but it is an idea that these women are being coerced and targeted for this behavior, and it happens, right? So she talks about it being sex of coercion on pages 88, 188 to 190. She talks about the fact that, uh, being pressured by these men, being sort of told them to do so. And because we live in a society where women are told to please men, okay, I'll do it because I don't want to make them angry. I don't want to be thought of as not part of the group. I might as well just let it happen. So it's not being held down and forced with a knife, but it is an idea of coercion and it is an idea of putting all this pressure upon a young woman into having sexual relationships that she does not want to have in order to get what you want. She also discusses the frustration she has with women having to defend their actions versus men having to own their behavior. It's a little thing on page 90, but it really is, she talks more about the fact that when we talk about rape on campus, there's always this intent to question women about if they had any role to play in the rape versus just asking the men, don't do that, right? She says the idea about asking questions to him, why did it happen? Why did you wear this? Why did you go with him? Why did you say this? Why did you touch him on the shoulder? Right? Versus asking men, why would you think that this is appropriate behavior? Why are you seeking sex from this woman? She talks about this frustration and this idea of rape culture that schools are really set up to defend men from their behavior versus asking men to be held to a higher standard to behave themselves in a way that's not brought upon women. And I don't know if it's even called a higher standard, right? We should all hope that when we go to university, we don't get sexually assaulted. That's not higher standard. That's just, I think, a basic level of care. So she talks a little bit about that. Now, it also can tie into the idea of white privilege, but racism, again, the idea that men can, especially white men can, go to these universities to indulge in violent behavior, to indulge in racist behavior, to involve in to engage in sexual conquest with little or no consequences, while the people who they do these acts to are left in shambles, and then they're asked, well, what role did you have in that type of behavior, right? She identifies the pro-rape messages at schools and a lack of leadership in a measure to stop them, right? So when we think about, he talks about there's a chant that was said at a university that talked about rape, like, oh, is this, thing, this, uh, like, no means yes, yes means anal sex, like those kinds of things were being said at Canadian universities all the time, right? So it's a culture that, the idea of rape culture is that it is this promotion of pro-rape attitude, or that women are teases and and when men force sex upon them, there must be some reason why these men are doing it, and we just need the women to be better, and it won't happen, right? So she talks about those kind of things versus just asking, men. And she mentions both Kane and American University. She mentions there's a kid in the United States, Lester, Brock something, Brock Peters, I think his name is, and how he went to a party that Laura was drunk and he raped her, and he was in charge. And one of the reasons the judge said, or people said, well, he's a young man, this will ruin his life. And people were saying, okay, but he's ruined someone's life because the woman was passed out and he forced himself upon her. So while we worry about, well, how this affect the young man's life, why aren't we concerned with the act of violence for the young woman, right? She also in this chapter talks about how to fight against it, what you need to do to rally and find ways to resist against it. And those last three chapters kind of really focus on this idea of her not only just identifying problems, but how she's looking for solutions to rally against those things. At the end of the rainbow, um, so this is the last actual chapter for the epilogue, and it focuses on her tired being at Western and anti-Black racism, right? So she talks about the fact that her friends are leaving for more inclusive schools. Now, I'm not saying that if those kids went to U of T or York University, their problems with anti-Black racism would disappear. I think what they're saying is that they find that the anti-Black racism at Western is so intense that they're just tired of it. They're tired of the questions. I think one of the comments goes was, I'm tired of the drunk white girls. I'm tired of the racist comments in school. I'm tired of the, you know, finding nooses and stuff in neighborhoods. Like I'm done with it, right? So he talks about how many of her friends are disappearing. She mentioned her friend Zadie, who said, I'm going to leave because I'm just tired of this. And then since the last year at the fourth year university, how she seeks support from other Black women and how talks about how Black women are not encouraged to seek support for mental health. And she talks a little bit about this, and she ties it back to what she said before earlier in the book about the fact that the idea of a Black woman is supposed to be strong and emotionally stable, the core of a family. They're not supposed to get upset. They're not supposed to have any issues or sense of need of mental health and mental care. They're supposed to just power through everything. Anything and everything, they're supposed to deal with it. And what she's trying to intuit here is that that's not possible, right? That they need help. And she talks about the fact that when she enters into her third year, fourth year class, she's just taking courses that deal with Black studies, and she finds other Black Western is relief. She talks about meeting feminists, right? Both Black and white, mostly Black, but them talking about their role as Black women in society, their rage and their anger, and getting into programs and doing performances to express those things. And she sees it as cathartic, like it's some place where she has a voice. So while her friends are leaving, and she knows that some of her friends are going to leave and have left, she also acknowledges that this group of people have given her the strength to continue on at Western to get her degree, because she feels now being supported after being so alone, and only seems to be having her and Taz. And we know by the end of the book, her and Taz, the relationship seems to fracture by the end of the book, that they're no longer friends, but these are women who've had experience that she understands, right? She identifies Black women power and how the fight against anti-Black racism, right? So she talks about terms like Black girl magic, right? An idea of positive reinforcement of being a Black woman, and also being able to seek solace and support from other Black people, but also to seek support from mental health experts, right? It is, I would say it is still a taboo in cultures, specifically in African Canadian, African American cultures, Black cultures, to seek help from mental health workers. It is thought of as weak. Uh, don't do that, go to church. Don't do that, go talk to your girlfriends. And she's trying to, and I think that she does a good part throughout the book, but also in this chapter, to say that no, these are vital. So yes, still have your friendship, still have your closeness, still meet with people who share your experiences so you feel validated to exist. But it's totally okay to seek help professionally, right? And it should be part of your tool set to deal with the stresses and of anti-Black racism, right? I've said it before, I'll say it again. Anti-Black racism is a mental health issue, right? Racism is a mental health issue. You cannot live in a society where people are targeting you because of the way you look and it not affect your mental health. And she's saying it does, and we need to address those issues. The epilogue, that's the end of the book, she concludes, she discusses how to move forward and how to make change. She talks about the fact that when she graduates, there was another shooting with a young Black man. She talks about how to make change. So pages 215 and 216, she really talks, she makes a little speech. She talks about the fact of how to make change. She provides hope and strength to carry on the fight for using different methods to resist and change. So in that speech, she talks about the fact that this is not necessarily about going out and protesting, but there are numerous ways in which people can resist anti-Black racism, right? Whether it's protesting, being in your school and providing and being classes. It can be helping people out and supporting them in other methods. She talks about numerous things that you could do that are not necessarily the idea of going to protest someone. You may not be a person who likes to protest, but maybe the person that says, well, I've donated money so I can help. So, and I'll use this as an example. Like, so some people during the recent upheaval in North America about it, there were hundreds and thousands of people who protested. And there's some people who said, I don't want to protest. But what they did was, well, I'm donating money to a fund. So when those people are arrested, they get lawyers to get them out of jail. Or I am making sure that I donate money to a fund that provides food and water for people who are on those who are protesting, right? I am going to engage in writing letters and campaigns. I'm going to use my economic power to support companies that support anti-Black racism versus the ones that say nothing, right? Protesting can be, I don't watch American NFL football because of what happened with Colin Kaepernick, because I said, well, that's just not, I'm not doing that, right? That's a form of resistance saying, well, is it just me just doing it? Yeah, but if I'm saying I'm not doing it because I've had it, and people ask me why, I'll say this is the reason why I do not watch it. I'm not telling people not to watch it. I'm saying this is why I'm not watching it. And maybe that influences other people. Maybe if enough people do it, then it forces the NFL to change. And it has changed, right? It went from being, we don't want to talk about Colin Kaepernick, he's a problem, to them saying Black Lives Matter, right? And it's because of constant pressure, because of the violence that's happened towards Black men, but also it becomes a situation where those athletes and those individuals saying that we're not going to play if you're not going to represent us. So she talks about different methods of change and approaching things. But also at the end of this chapter, she makes a case for the idea of writing about oneself or autobiography as a method of healing and growth, right? She says that some people think that writing about self is lazy. She goes, but at the same time, we live in a culture because of white supremacy. Then when white males do it, it becomes, oh, the greatest thing ever, right? It's so amazing for a white man to write about his experience, but when a woman of color does, it's, oh, you're being lazy. But she says that this was not just, it was not just about making money, but it was about a way for her to go through her life, see what choices she's made, see what things have gone wrong with her, and see how she can make changes and how she can resist and struggle. So she sees it as cathartic, a process that one must go through, and it does reveal things about you if you can actually look at your life. And again, in the book, remember, she does not write an autobiography where things are perfect for me, I'm great, everything is fine. She doesn't do that. She doesn't also say that everyone hates me, it's everyone else's fault. She doesn't do that. She does clearly acknowledge and talk about anti-Black racism. She does clearly acknowledge and talk about how that has had an impact on her life and how it continues to do so. But she does delve in her relationships with other people and talk about codependency. She talks about her not being the best friend to Taz, who needed her to be a different type of friend, but she was erratic in her own life. Right? She talks about her fears and her issues, right? How she herself has dealt with mental health, how she numbed herself to her experiences. So the idea is that she's telling you this to get a better understanding. Uh, this was the book that we were reading because we talked about the idea that it was important for us to, when reading a book, is to see someone's perspective. Now, you may argue about whether or not she thinks it's truth or not, but we're not here to discuss whether or not her perceptions are part of reality. We're here to understand her viewpoint. So in order to gain a greater understanding of when you read a piece of work, that if you can understand a person's viewpoint, you better have a better understanding of what's going on with them. And you can then see, well, why do you think this way, right? So Eternity has painted a very uh, clear picture of how she sees um, anti-racism within Canada. Now, some may say that she's wrong, right? But that's not the argument we're making. The argument is, well, she sees it this way. Why is that? And I think she says, well, this is what I do. And this is the reason why I think it's larger than me. And this is why I think that it exists in our society. And this is why I think we need to do the changes. Great. So that's her position. That's how she ends the book. Again, with not everything's great. I figured everything, but hey, have the strength to go on, have the strength to challenge. Be introspective about your life and don't be afraid to tell your truth because if you don't, no one else will. Okay, so when reading the book, think about those things as you're reading it, as you're getting to the end. Those are the things, see how they all tie together. And again, these last three chapters sort of tie into what she's talked about before. And she's just basically coming to some sort of conclusion on here are my experiences, here's what's happening to me. And she's also providing a message for people to find ways to fight against anti-Black racism. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the recording.